Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. Today is Sunday, June 1st, 2025, and we have a fascinating conversation for you about the beginnings of some combination rejuvenation therapies for longevity. This is an exciting topic, and we have a distinguished panel joining us today, including our Director of Visual Art and current Vice Chairman, Art Ramon Garcia, and our Technology Advisor and Foreign Ambassador in Spain, Dr. Jose Cordero. By the way, please take a look on my YouTube channel if you have not done so already to see my interview with Jose at the last Longevity Summit Dublin in 2024. Jose and I will both be at the upcoming Longevity Summit Dublin in July of 2025. Now, our special guest today is Vladimir Leshko. He is focused on transforming healthcare toward a personalized and preventive model, defeating age-related diseases, and eventually solving aging itself. He has professional interests in organ-on-a-chip technology, longevity, biotech, and digital health. He is the chief operating officer of Unlimited Bio, whose goal is to conduct 100 clinical trials of genetic preventive therapies in 10 years by making use of the regulatory flexibility of the Próspera Free Economic Zone in Honduras. Right now, Unlimited Bio is working to launch its first batch of trials targeting age-related hair loss, skin quality deterioration, and sarcopenia via repurposing of an existing safe and effective genetic therapy. And an interesting fact about Vladimir, he is a former online pro poker player. He was in the top 1% in the world, but after graduating as a biomedical engineer, he is building a career focused on human health, and we are happy to have him in the longevity field. So welcome, Vladimir. You have a presentation for us about the work of Unlimited Bio, so please feel free to begin.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Gennady, and thank you everybody for having me today. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a bit what we do at Unlimited Bio, and that's exactly what you said. We combine therapies for longevity. Since I have a generous amount of time today, I'm first going to say a few words about myself, then about the approach we use at Unlimited Bio, and then a bit more into the science. So I started off like my longevity journey with biohacking, probably roughly around 2017. So I did all those weird examinations, tests, protocols, nutrition, fasting, cold plunges. Since I lived in Russia at the time, that was really convenient for cold plunges, sauna, and so on. And what it led me to realize that actually the capacity to increase lifespan with all those fancy methods is very limited. And of course, so they are not applicable to general population. Afterwards, I decided to switch my career path. As you mentioned, yeah, and it was playing poker professionally. I also did some entrepreneurial projects. But I thought, yeah, how can I come closer to the longevity field? So I got a master's in biomedical engineering in Delft in the Netherlands, where I currently reside. And then a year later, I founded Unlimited Bio together with Ivan and Anna, who you might have already met. The good thing about unlimited bio is that when you do experiment with gene therapies, you also get a chance to experiment on yourself. So the biohacking part is still there. And yeah, the problem we are looking at, it's a huge one, and that aging is still the #1 killer in the world. And the problem is that aging is extremely complex. It's hundreds, if not thousands, of processes at once. And what we say is that, yeah, well, you can probably take some sort of pills like metformin or rapamycin, and they may be able to attack several of those processes at once, but not enough to make a meaningful difference, to say make humans live even 5 years longer. So what we say is that we need to do trials on combinatorial therapies. So see what we have in the field developed for diseases or close to get into the market, and see what combinations can we make out of those existing therapies to make a meaningful difference in the field. And what we also say is that pharmaceutical companies and governments, they're not trying good enough, because we still have over 100,000 people dying per day. And with the current pace of developing drugs, when it takes on average over $1 billion for a drug to market, and over 10 years, usually it's just will take an incredible amount of time, and also will require an effort probably higher than a Apollo project. So it would be almost impossible for the economy to tackle that. And of course, what's also stopping that are the regulations, because right now we do optimize for safety heavily. So I just researched that on average in the US, we have 1 death per 200,000 participants in the phase 1 trials. So like people during trials don't die on average, it just doesn't happen. And at the same time, reaching even phase 1 trials requires at least 100 million in investment and several years. So we sacrifice 100,000 people per day to get like to a very insane safety level during trials, and so just a situation we want to resolve. And we try to rewrite the rules of BioTech. Very ambitious, but we'll try. So what we achieved so far, that we brought our first therapy to market, not to US market, of course, but to Próspera market for only $200,000, even less. And we expect that a new therapy, which will require preclinical trials, we can bring down the costs to roughly around $1 million or 10 million. And also, it happens way faster because you don't have to redo the trials within Próspera, so you can just show the existing data and get the drug to market. So compared to getting to the US market, we are greatly accelerated there. So as I mentioned, we launched our first therapy in roughly 10 months. And we do leverage special economic zones. So we started our company in Próspera, and probably not all of you are familiar what it is. It's like a regular Caribbean paradise island with a small bunch of land dedicated to this special economic zone. It has good connections to the US. It's visited by a lot of tourists, and it's considered very safe compared to the rest of Honduras, especially. And what makes it work is like a very flexible regulatory system inside Próspera. which allows us to ditch delays and bureaucracy, and to probably the most important point, to do patient-funded clinical trials, because roughly maybe up to 90% of the cost of getting the drug to market are clinical trials on humans. And what we say, since like 100,000 people dies each day from aging, and they basically don't have a single chance today, then it could be that, say, 1% or 0.01% of them, they would be willing to experiment with potentially life-saving therapies for them. And of course, part of them will be willing to reimburse the costs. So in 2024, we launched our first therapy. It's called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. And what it does, it promotes angiogenesis, so formation of new capillaries in the tissue. It's a plasmid, and generally plasmid gene therapies, they are considered extremely safe. Because of this plasmid, it just complements your DNA in the cells, so it doesn't alter in any way the original DNA. It also doesn't have any sort of viral particle carrying it, so you don't get any immune response from that. And the good thing about this therapy, we licensed it from a Russian BioTech company. The good thing about it was that it was a while already in the market, and it had over 10,000 patients treated without any significant side effects registered, but with proven efficacy. And that's why we thought it's like a great first step to try and license this therapy and bring it to Próspera. And the effects they saw in the trials were quite interesting. So the patients that had peripheral artery disease and developed a complication called lower limb ischemia. So they were having trouble walking without pain. And this drug improved their pain-free walking distance by, I think, on average, 170%. And some patients saw like 700% improvement and so on. So for some people, it had a life-changing and limb-saving effect, because when your ischemia in your legs develops, you can risk amputation. And in some cases, it's impossible to make a surgery. So this drug surgery, I mean, to reconstruct the vessels and to improve tissue oxygenation in a surgical way. So for some people, it was really a life-saving therapy. And of course, we are also interested in the original indication, and we also use it for PAD. But we thought that potentially VEGF can also be used as a preventive / enhancing indication. So when you inject it into the muscle of healthy people, that's what I did on myself, you can, in theory, see enhanced endurance, because you get improved oxygen, nutrient delivery, greater waste removal. And you can also see offset in first steps of hair loss, because hair loss is closely connected with shrinking of hair follicles due to decreased amount of capillaries in your scalp. So those are the two indications we use it for, apart from PAD. And yeah, we don't work with patients ourselves, so we outsource that to the clinics. And our first partner clinic is GAM. The head of the clinic is Dr. Glenn Terry, who was a former physician of the US Olympic Committee, and he has a great experience in doing trials, including trials on gene therapies. So we don't want to stop there. So as I mentioned, plasmids, they're really safe, but also they have questionable efficiency because they don't stay in your cells that long. So you get protein production for several weeks, which is good, but you won't get protein production for 5 or 10 years. So in case of VEGF, it's important to say that we get the effect for 5 years, but it's not strictly connected to protein production, because when you get secretion of VEGF protein, you build new capillary network around the injection sites, and then this capillary network, according to the studies, it stays with the patients for 3 to 5 years and even longer. But for some therapies, we need protein secretion all the way. So we partnered with BioViva, so Liz Parrish, and Liz arguably has like the most experience in the world with longevity AAV therapies. So we licensed 4 therapies from her. And what we want to do next is bring all those positions here on the slide to the market in Próspera, and also potentially a few other Latin American countries. And with the first 4, we want to do a combination trial, because as I mentioned in the beginning, one protein, one gene therapy, one drug, it won't get you very far in terms of aging. So you may get increased muscle mass, which is good, like more power, more force, that's good, but your brain will keep aging at the same pace. We also need something for the brain, we need something for the immune system, and so on. So what we want to achieve eventually is roughly by 2034, if we move at a high pace, to assemble 100 therapy portfolio. 100 is like a very not meaningful number, so maybe it's going to be 50, maybe it's going to be 120, no idea. But it's not only going to be gene therapies. We also want to focus on small molecules, antibodies, exosomes, potentially cell therapies, stem cells. Plasmapheresis is a very interesting direction for us. So also including whatever else becomes available in the next decade will be hopefully the company which will be able to get to humans and get this drug to humans in the shortest amount of time. Now, I want to dive a bit deeper and so double click on our AAV-based combination. And we go for that combination because we experience all sorts of those terrible processes during aging. And we think that this combination, our first attempt, will indeed have a potent effect on those processes. And that's a combination we enrolled into XPRIZE and went to become one of the top 100 teams still competing in the XPRIZE. And the first thing is VEGF. So that's the only therapy in the combination that won't be in AAV form. So as I mentioned, it's a plasmid, won't be delivered by a virus. And it's like a somewhat neglected factor in aging. So it's only recently appeared on the radars. And although for quite a while, studies already showed that older people indeed get less capillaries in the muscle, in the skin, in all the organs. So it does significantly, the amount of capillaries does go down, and so does the ability of all the people to offset that loss with exercise. So exercise indeed is a trigger for releasing VEGF, but all the people are not able to do this as good as young. And one of the potential reasons is that with age, you get an increased amount of those decoy receptors for VEGF, which bind VEGF and thus kind of distract the protein from binding to the signaling receptors. But we can potentially overcome this process by increasing the amount of VEGF in the tissue where we need it. And what's even more interesting, that a recent study from 2021 showed that when mice have increased VEGF levels since birth, they live almost 50% longer than regular lab mice. So quite counterintuitively, VEGF had life extension effect, because VEGF is also closely connected to cancer in the body. And in this case, mice actually developed less tumors. And overall, they were feeling way better in all dimensions. So they had more bone mass, they had less abdominal fat, and as I mentioned, the lifespan was improved. The second component is follistatin. It's probably the most hyped, or one of the most hyped longevity-related proteins. So follistatin slows down it inhibits myostatin, and myostatin makes your muscle break down. So follistatin kind of stops your muscle from declining. And follistatin was extensively tested not only in mice but also in primates. And indeed, they developed a way larger quadriceps muscle at the injection sites. And what's important, they didn't see any safety warnings. Further on, follistatin improves insulin sensitivity, so potentially it can also offset the diabetes type 2. So kind of also an exercise mimicking effect there. And it also improves vessel function. And in this regard, we think that follistatin and VEGF, they can have like a very powerful connection, because one of them improves blood delivery to the muscle, and the other one makes muscle bigger. But it's not enough like for the muscle size to become larger, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get more strength. But I think if we combine them together, we kind of have both the components, so blood delivery and muscle size. And also, well, follistatin itself has a very positive effect on blood pressure, but in this case, it was shown in rats, I think. And also it had a prominent effect on lifespan extension in mice. And what's even more interesting, that follistatin was already tested in humans. In this case, it was tested in humans with a severe disorders of back muscular dystrophy. And these patients, what they observed in some patients is actually the increase of the muscle size at the injection sites. So I think it was like the first trial which registered such an effect on muscle growth in humans. And they also experienced reduced fibrosis rates. And in this case, the study is great. It was already tried in humans, and they showed a great safety. But it's also a concern for us because those patients develop, you see, some sort of like bumps. So we didn't want, of course, people to get that. We strongly think that it's due to the muscle being fibrosed. So potentially also having a combination with EGF, which will kind of allow follistatin spread more widely into the muscle and have a more systemic effect. It may prove beneficial. Then the third thing we have is alpha-klotho. So it's one of the proteins of the klotho family, the one which is very strongly connected with all sorts of positive effects in virtually all organs, including brain. And it also was connected with extension of lifespan in mice. And what we see with klotho in humans is that it has a very prominent decline with age. So it also gives us a hint that maybe offsetting this pathway, it will have a meaningful effect on aging. So it also plays a role in vascular disease and what's even more interesting in cognitive function. It has also been tried in humans. So in this case, several people with, it's only 5 patients, 5 patients with early onset dementia, they got it, and they, first of all, they found out that the safety was really incredible, so no side effects registered, no immune reactions, nothing. And all the patients got improved cognitive score according to cognitive tests. Of course, such a small trial is not representative to conclude, but we for sure think that there are some hints there, and we should keep going. So klotho is also extremely popular right now in the longevity community, everybody wants it. And the fourth thing is a bit more exotic, so BDNF. It's a factor which promotes formation of new connections between neurons in the brain, but not only in the brain, and also declines with age. And we think that adding it to the cocktail will give us a shot at stopping dementia. Of course, a big problem with the gene therapies and the brain is delivery to the brain. So we need to experiment there with the delivery methods to make sure it does get into the brain. That's the tricky part. It has also been tried in humans. In this case, it was injected directly into the cortex. But we don't want to go for that because, most of the healthy people, I guess, will object from things getting injected into their brains. So we'll try other delivery methods like intranasal or maybe even intravenous. We'll see. So those 4 proteins, once again, we'll combine. We'll use different delivery methods, not proteins here, but gene therapies. So what we expect to see is very prolonged production of those proteins within your own cells. And we want to test it later this year in our phase 1 trial. So right now we have a preclinical trial running. It started in May on mice, and upon the results of that preclinical trials, we'll make a decision if we proceed with this phase 1 trial. So we already kind of loosely looking for participants, and what we'll have there is not only a treatment group but also a placebo group. the design will be crossover design, so eventually all 15 participants will get gene therapies administered, but it will allow us to compare side effects in the treatment group with placebo group with placebo control. So we'll get a slightly high quality data there than just injecting everybody at day one. So a few words about our team. Our CEO is Ivan, who has a background in building several longevity companies in the classic regulations. One of them, for example, is trying to offset elastin degradation. It's like a very important protein which helps your tissue be more elastic, and they're trying to increase this protein in humans. So far, they're experimenting on mice. And Anna has an amazing experience of bringing first Russian commercial COVID vaccine to phase 2 clinical trials in just 2 years. And she also has great experience with AAV gene therapies. We have Liz Parrish in partners. We have Glenn Terry, who runs the GAM clinic, and I should also highlight Alexander Fedintsev, who recently got like a Rising Star of Longevity Research Award from Aubrey de Grey himself. So Alexander is a very practically oriented scientist, so he helps us look for things that really might work in very short-term scenario. So what we can get to humans in the next 2 to 5 years. So I kindly ask you to join us in our fight against aging. And what we need is BioTech partners, we need investors. So right now we are preparing for our seed round. So if you know people who might be interested in investment, please connect us. We're also looking for trial participants. So if you're potentially interested in coming to Próspera or potentially other locations around US, then you can scan the QR code and just fill a one question form, and we'll get back to you as soon as we have something on the radar. Yeah, there's our website and social networks. So let's stay connected. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Vladimir, for an excellent presentation. And we have a lot of our viewers expressing agreement with that. Rudy Hoffman says that you are a great guest. For Freedom says this is a very nice presentation. And we have a number of other compliments for you. Right now, let's go to questions, and there have been many questions in the chat. There are some questions from me as well, but let us start with Dr. Jose Cordero.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a fantastic presentation, very comprehensive. And first of all, let me congratulate you and the team, because you achieved to become one of the 100 first finalists of the HealthSpan X Prize. In fact, I think you should have mentioned that. I mean, this is important, very important, to be among the top 10 teams competing for the HealthSpan X Prize, which was announced a couple of weeks ago. So first of all, congratulations. I know very well Anna and Ivan. In fact, we worked together in Próspera when they were beginning to do many of these ideas and making them reality. Also, the picture that you shot with Liz Parrish, I took that picture. I don't know if you know. I took that picture with Liz Parrish because she presented that in a congress in Germany, where we both were in Leipzig, Germany, and I sent it to Ivan and to Anna. So I'm so happy to see that picture also in your presentation. So congratulations for that too. I have two questions. One is about funding. You didn't mention any of that. And this is the most important thing. What kind of funding are you looking for? And also, when and which human clinical trials would you do first? And if they will be in Próspera or in other places, have you considered other places? Because there are different initiatives. Próspera is not the only one right now. There will be, and there are other places trying to open up for these clinical trials. So those are my questions. Funding and clinical trials, and where?
Yeah, thank you, Jose. It's nice to see you here today. And I placed the picture without knowing that you'll be around, so it's good. You witnessed your work on the screen. So thanks for that. Yeah. And regarding, and we are indeed in the top 100 health span teams. I personally was really, really disappointed. It was like almost crying for 2 days that we didn't get in the top 40. But we indeed had some improvements to make to our trial plan there to make it. Maybe they thought it's a bit unrealistic, a bit too fast. But whatever, we are past that. So regarding funding, yeah, we want to raise 2 million right now, and we have a few small commitments, but not enough to proceed with the round. So we're looking for like longevity-minded, rebellious venture capitalists that will back us up. And the hardest part is there for us is to show our business model. They say like, oh, no, how are we going to make money on this? And we are very radical in that regard. So we want to go to treating aging as fast as possible right now. And indeed, it may raise questions with them, like how are we going to patent all those combinations? Will the pharmaceutical companies be interested in getting our data if it wasn't Próspera and like whatnot? So yeah, but we are open to those conversations. So indeed, we want to talk to more VCs and to angel investors as well. So please connect us. And the second question, we're also looking at other locations. So we just signed with a clinic in Mexico, a clinic in Dubai. So Dubai has right now very interesting regulations, which will allow even viral gene therapies, hopefully, to get to the market very quickly there and to get to human trials. And we're also looking at Bahamas. So we also have a partner in Bahamas. They're opening a clinic there quite soon, I think. So it's not set in stone that we'll do our trials only in Próspera. So we indeed want to protect us from any sort of political instability and also have other locations on the map.
Yes, thank you very much for those answers, Vladimir. And our friend Rudy Hoffman does have a question along these lines as well, in terms of the legal stability of Próspera and what your assessment of that is, as well as the future of that jurisdiction and what alternatives you're looking at in terms of contingency planning.
Yeah, so there was a lot of turmoil in Próspera when the current current president, they tried just to completely destroy it, at least on paper. So there was a statement released from the court that Próspera was declared not constitutional, and it actually didn't have any sort of circumstances on people living or making business in Próspera. So all the companies there, they're just business as usual. They tried to shut down one building. But it was some sort of a small office, I know, or even a storage room or something, and then they just let it go. And so patients are still coming to Ghana clinic, getting treated. Nobody faces problems with on the border or anything. So we didn't see any like consequences of that, like how bank operates and so on. And but they also have elections later this year, and I think the current socialist government, they are, so far it seems they're losing the elections. And also because of Trump influence, I think US will be fighting to protect the investments in Próspera. It has a lot of backing from like billionaires and so on. So it seems to be able to survive. And I also talked a bit with locals when I was there, and I didn't really see any like serious counter arguments to Próspera existing, because they do employ local people. That's a fact. They do pay higher salaries than Honduras average. That's also a fact. They don't occupy a significant portion of land, so they don't disrupt like the local communities. And the main argument I heard from locals is that like Próspera is a legal paradise and everything is allowed there. So you can do drugs there, you can commit a crime in Honduras, kill someone and hide in Próspera, because Honduran police is not active in Próspera. And in fact, it's totally fake, because Próspera follows the criminal code of Honduras. So you cannot do drugs or commit crimes within Próspera, same as on mainland Honduras. That's why, for example, Próspera doesn't see any sort of companies which do psychedelic research, not a single one. So I hope it survives. I sincerely hope it survives, but in case it doesn't, we also have some backup.
Yes, thank you for that answer, and I share your hope. I do think a lot will hinge on the upcoming presidential election in Honduras, because it really is the socialist government of Xiomara Castro that has endangered Próspera. The prior government was in support of it, and perhaps if a different party comes to power again, Próspera will be more secure from a legal standpoint. We do have a question from Dave Ringelberg, who wonders, what are your plans for data that you would collect from the gene therapies, particularly the combination gene therapies, which would be quite innovative since you would be essentially targeting 4 genes at the same time. Will any of the findings be openly published so that others in the field can build on them?
Yeah, that's the plan. So since we don't, like regular BioTechs, we don't attach ourselves to a certain like single pathway, a single molecule. So if VEGF doesn't work on healthy humans, we say, like guys, that we didn't see an effect, so we discard that, we remove it, we move on. So if we see side effects with follistatin, we also iterate on that. So we are not, we don't have any like sentimental ties to any of those gene therapies or proteins. So the goal is to really find what works and keep it, and for the rest, publish data that it doesn't work. Like let's work on something else. We need new stuff. So yeah, that allows us to be really open with the data. So, and actually one of the key points of XPRIZE is that you have to publish everything. You have to disclose all the data you got. Otherwise, you're not competing. And I imagine if you don't disclose that, it means it didn't work or you didn't do the trial. And it's a bit of an off topic, but it would be really interesting to see regarding X Prize that they have a lot of healthy nutrition, I know Japanese tea, or exercise, or some sort of nutraceutical companies and so on. So what we potentially may see as a result of X Prize that will actually observe how many things have no effect on aging. Maybe during X Prize we won't find a thing that works, that offsets human aging by 20 years. So everybody doubts that, but we'll be able to see how many things don't work. That's could be a good result there.
Yes, and of course, publishing negative results is quite important for scientific progress. It is not done as often as it should be, but it does give a lot of information to future researchers or even the same researchers about what paths not to follow, what paths have been followed already without the desired results. So we have a number of questions now. I did want to ask one about VEGF and the angiogenesis effects of it. And I'm curious from a safety standpoint what you know about the effects if there are new small blood vessels that are formed. Clearly that can improve blood flow, but small blood vessels, new blood vessels can also be pretty delicate. And I wonder if there's an increased risk of rupture of those blood vessels and whether that is an important safety concern for the patients, or if you haven't observed that either in the literature or any trials, preliminary trials that you've done, let me know as well.
Yeah, for sure. They're very delicate, so they're mostly capillaries. So it's the thinnest type of vessels you can imagine. And yeah, what you mentioned, having kind of, I'm not familiar with the exact medical term, but you indeed can get like an unappropriate formation of capillaries, which don't supply the muscle, but just kind of leak blood. It's one of the potential side effects of VEGF, but it wasn't observed in clinical trials of what they did in Russia. And it was quite extensively studied. So like the main thing why we went for VEGF is like it was a very, very safe bet. So as I mentioned, over 10,000 patients got that, and we didn't see that effect. So far with the people we administered to, we also didn't observe that effect in healthy people. Most of the people raise a more significant concern regarding VEGF, which is cancer, because you might have heard that there are some chemotherapies which target VEGF, which block this pathway and slow down the growth of tumors. And it's a more major concern, but once again, we didn't see it in the clinical trials. We didn't see it on animals. In fact, the animals got less cancer with the VEGF. And then we also protect ourselves from that because the plasmid effect is strictly local. So it cannot be distributed in the bloodstream because it gets chopped in the bloodstream with nucleases. So it's only gets into the cells which are in proximity to the injection site. So the downside is that you need to do a lot of injections, so at least 10 per leg, for example. But you don't get an effect on the brain, or even if you have a tumor somewhere, in the lung, for example, it won't affect that tumor. So the only thing you have to avoid is like injecting around the tumor or in the tumor itself. That's why we also prefer, just for additional safety, not to work with patients which have oncology history.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. And I take it if one were to get a VEGF therapy for, say, hair regrowth, one would have to get injections in the scalp or close to the scalp. Yes. And I'm curious also, what stages of hair loss does the therapy work on? So, of course, some people have lost almost all or all of their hair. Others may just get some minor hair thinning. Where is that delineation between where the therapy could work or where the hair loss is just too significant?
We think that, like the correct answer, we don't know. We don't know what stage of hair loss it will work on. So we just know that the mechanism is there, that it might work on certain stages. We don't know yet. We don't have the data to say, yeah, it works for this stage. Right now, the owner of the rights for the therapy, they have a trial running for male pattern alopecia, so for hair loss related to hormone levels in the body. And we are, I know, maybe it will work, but not sure. We think that it might work for, say, age-related hair thing and hair loss. When older people, they get the sort of thin hairs and they kind of less hairs, but they are still evenly spread around the scalp. So that's the condition we want to primarily target. And because they still have follicles all over the scalp, and if we improve the blood supply, we'll at least make those follicles stronger and larger. So that's where we want to experiment. For example, my co-founder Ivan, he has like a very severe stage of hair loss that he cannot even make a hair transplant. So for him, we don't expect it will work because he doesn't have any follicles left. Maybe after he makes a transplant, it can be like an additional supportive therapy to improve for blood flow to the place where he made the transplant. But yeah, it's also a hypothesis. So what we have for hair loss is the mechanism. We don't have the results yet, unfortunately.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. And I will note, by the way, for anybody who is curious about this, there is no correlation between hair loss and longevity as far as we know. So even people who lose all of their hair can have the same life expectancy as people who don't. However, this therapy is interesting from an angiogenesis standpoint because the ability to regrow blood vessels and improve circulation, if that can be done to reverse hair loss, could potentially also be done to reverse other aspects of biological aging. So now Jose has another question, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with you, first of all, Gennady, as well. Hair loss, even though I'm also beginning to suffer hair loss like most men do, is not a critical condition. It's not death or life. I am more interested in cloto and folliestatin. In fact, I would love to inject myself with those two as soon as we know how, when, and all of those details. So, my question is a bit about that, about cloto, but I have two other things to mention. Maybe since you are in the Netherlands, you should go to the International Longevity Summit in Madrid. This is the biggest conference in Spain about longevity. We have top scientists like people from Harvard, George Church, the CEO of Evolution Foundation, Mehmood Khan, one of the top Altos Labs researchers, Steve Horvath, who created the epigenetic clocks, and many other people. So it would be fantastic to have you with us. And then besides the clot of Olistatin question, when are they coming up? Have you also read my book, which is in Russian? I'm so happy. My book is soon in 20 languages, including Russian, but they changed the title. So can you read the title? Because it is not the death of death. It is something else.
It says death should die.
Russian style, death should die. That's good, though.
Yes, absolutely. Death should die. And hopefully our various forms of advocacy and research and advances in gene therapies will help to kill death within our lifetimes. Now, also, Vladimir, you were issuing a call for volunteers, and Art Ramon said that he would like to volunteer. So Art Ramon, would you like to say any more about this or have any questions in connection to your desire to volunteer, anything that perhaps could be answered during this salon?
Yeah, it's I've had long COVID for quite some time. Hit me the hardest towards the end of 2020. And I've tried numerous therapies, and some would work for a while, then they quit working. Some do work, but their effects diminish over time. And right now I'm actually experimenting with TRT right now. I'm a month and a half in, and I'm going to do like a 6-month experiment with TRT. I had to get off the hyperbaric oxygen therapy to feel how it's really working, and I feel like crap getting off the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Even though the effects had diminished, it was still doing a bit to give me a lot of energy. So I'll probably eventually get back on the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And but yeah, I'll be happy to volunteer. Right now, I really hate my quality of life the way it is without any sort of therapy. If I didn't have any therapy, I mean, life really sucks because I have to drink so much coffee to make it through the workday, and then I'm just dead tired afterwards. I have to sleep 4 hours, and then I have to, wake up and do a little bit of whatever, and then go back to sleep and repeat. And quality of life really sucks, when you just don't have that energy. And yeah, I'll be happy to volunteer. I'll go to the site and register. I got to get my passport in order. It's not in order. And my dad said he would help me out financially. So that was one of the sticking points to try and any of this experimental type therapies to try and help with the long COVID. So, after this 6 months, I might even go back to Odin stem cells and try the stem cells. And I can do that here in this country without having my passport in order. But one of the things I used to do, even before COVID, was do inversion therapy and hang upside down. And that would help create a lot of more vascularity in the upper chest. And I did that as sort of as an anti-cognitive decline therapy, because I did have a cognitive decline, I think sometime after, almost even before 2012, I was having some cognitive decline issues, which is why I started to learn sign language and do other things to get my mind working. I did have a rear end incident and a few jujitsu injuries where I banged my head, which probably didn't help. So inversion therapy was one thing I tried. I think it did help, but again, with a lot of therapies, it's just diminishing returns, which sucks. I mean, you do a therapy, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and then you end up with diminishing returns, which is one of the things I absolutely hate. That I have found certain therapies that work like HBOT, but that is expensive long term. If I could do it weekly, it would be the best, but at $100 a pop, it does get expensive. So I was doing it bi-weekly, and it seemed to be okay until I did a full stop when I got some nasal surgery, and I couldn't do H-spot for 2 months. And then it seems when I restarted, it wasn't as effective because maybe somehow I need to get on a heavier dose and then do a maintenance dose. And I haven't done that. But like I said, I've also been experimenting with other therapies for long COVID. And, a lot of the long COVID symptoms are very similar to aging. Whether long COVID is aging me, I don't know, or it's some other mechanism at work. I just know when I exercise, I've been trying to exercise and get fit again. And it seems like whatever mechanism that exercise is supposed to do to make your body fit and stay fit is broken. It's like I exercise, and the gains are very hard and they're quick to lose. And with a TRT, I hope that would give me more energy to do more exercise. And the first injection was great. I had a lot of energy after that first injection, but then I increased my activity levels, my walking, and then the second and third injections so far, I'm not impressed. So I was talking to ChatGPT, and I said, well, maybe I'm just kind of overdoing it with the exercise, but I'm like, this is the way I've always exercised. I exercise hard, but the body gets stronger. Now I exercise hard, and I spend days in bed because it doesn't make me stronger. And after this, I'm going to go walk. Before the TRT therapy, I had a sticking point where I go walk in this canyon, which is a paved road in the canyon. I had a sticking point about 1.5 miles in. That was my sticking point. I could not get past that. The TRT helped me break through that, and I was able to get to 2 miles. But then to get 1/4 mile past that was extremely painful. I'm literally walking as slow as possible, taking half steps. My heart rate is like high 150s. I've got people who are older than me, like 20 years older than me, passing me up. And I feel like I'm dying because my muscles are burning. The good thing is it doesn't feel like my heart is giving out. My heart is definitely pumping hard, but it seems more like my muscles. My muscles is like, it's if I'm doing 10 squats, and then I take a step, do another 10 squats, and take another step. It's my muscles are just burning. So that's what I'll subject myself to after this, because I'm trying to break past the 2.5 miles. But it's very painful, very, very painful to exercise in this fashion. And I don't see any other way of getting fit. I've tried other things, and the gradual, I lose my gains. It doesn't matter if I take it easy and get those fitness gains, I'm going to lose them the moment I can't exercise 2 weeks in a row. So, and that's just ridiculous. In the past, before COVID, I could take 2 months off and be perfectly fine, getting back into exercising. Now, I can't take 2 weeks off without losing any gains. So, yeah, it's my quality of life sucks. I'm willing to be that guinea pig. So, any thoughts?
Well, I've never seen anyone complain about not having enough energy with so much energy in the voice. So with that kind of motivation, you'll certainly make a great participant for experiments. Actually, we are planning even a more comprehensive protocol for XPRIZE. Because you need to show 15 to 20 year age decrease there, so like a biomarker decrease. So you have to make Ramon bring him back to age 33 technically, which is, or at least like to 38. So we also want to add, of course, lifestyle and nutrition and all that, because it's if somebody is not already doing that, we can also get some added effect there to do a good job in this competition, because like it's not very scientific, because combining 100 things, you won't really know what makes the effect. But for X price, yeah, it might work. So we'll also add potentially TRT or stem cells there. So yeah, we'll see. But this trial, a more comprehensive one, it will happen probably not earlier than 2027. But yeah, we'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah, it's looking at my biomarkers, they're not very good. For one thing, I've got a very high BMI. That's one of the things of not being able to exercise well, is that it's very difficult to keep my body weight down and keep my appetite down. I did get an HRV monitor. My HRV is terrible. I'm like, its average is like 8 when it's supposed to be like in the 30s. And I did go to a COVID therapist, and she said about meditating to get out of the sympathetic mode. But frankly, it just doesn't work. I could meditate, maybe it'll work for 15, 30 minutes, and I'm just back to my crappy HRV. So it's not really a cure. It's just a very short-term therapy of meditating. I've tried even the Pulsetto. It might help, but it's very temporary effect. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for something harder hitting along a cure, not just a therapy that gets me by. But thank you for coming on.
Indeed. And long COVID, of course, is a very difficult condition to treat because it manifests differently in different patients. So therapies that might work for some don't necessarily work for others. I had long COVID for a year myself, and I essentially exercised my way out of it through graded exercise therapy, where I would target particular heart rate zones. And initially, I didn't care so much about the pace of my running as long as I was hitting those heart rate zones. But over time, my speed improved, and I essentially became reconditioned. My response to stress became normalized, but I most likely had a lighter case of long COVID than Art Ramon does. So Jose did have another part to his question about moving faster with follistatin and clothos. So if you could address that, I think that would be of interest to our audience.
Thank you. Yes.
So first I'll start with hair loss here. Indeed, hair loss, you're correct, Jose, it's not that important. But we in the team, we think it's like how you look. It shows also your age. So if you'll be able to improve your looks to a younger state, you kind of also offset aging. We think people really care about how they look, at least a lot of people. And what's counterintuitive and what's been told to us also by our clinical partners is that generally, from a financial standpoint, people are willing to pay more to improve how they look. And they already do invest, tens of thousands per year into improving how they look. And not so many people invest that much into preventive health. So it's kind of becoming a trend right now, but it's not that big compared to this huge aesthetic industry. So for us, it's also a way to be more interesting to investors or to people who don't care that much about aging at this point, but want to do experiment with the hair loss. And it's surprising. It's also surprising for me, maybe because I don't have hair loss, but a lot of people do care about that. And regarding follistatin and clotho, we see a lot of demand for that in the market, and we want to get there as fast as possible. as soon as we solve like all the issues, we plan the trials. So right now we'll probably do trials with follistatin as well. So we need to map out like how to test patients for also applicability of AAV therapies, because, for example, some people have elevated antibodies for AAVs, and for them the therapy won't be effective or will have large side effects in terms of immune reaction. So one of the screenings we need to do is testing for AAV antibodies, and even be specific for the AAV serotype we use, because there are different types of AAV also. There are also ways to suppress immunity before the injections. So we are also developing immunosuppressive protocols, and we learn a lot from Liz Parrish there, of course. So there are various approaches to that, and we need to get them straight before we go to humans. But we expect that to happen this year. So that's the target.
All right. Thank you very much for those answers. And we have a number of additional questions. Mike Lazine wonders whether these gene therapies might be less effective the older a patient is. To him, it seems the gene therapies might work best in younger people. And I wonder if that has been your observation, or whether the efficacy is largely uncorrelated with the age of the patient. And we could have, say, even extreme situations, somebody who's 20 years old receiving the gene therapy versus someone who is 90 years old, but clearly the 90-year-old would be in a position to benefit more as compared to a 20-year-old who is healthy.
Well, in our case, we'll be targeting slightly older people. So I would say roughly about 50 years old and older, I think up to 70 or 80. Because also, of course, after a certain threshold, you do get a lot of risk. For example, if you get 80-year-old patients which already have like comorbidities, and you inject them with like therapies which do affect the immune system, so they produce a strong immune reaction that potentially can be dangerous, although those patients are the ones who might benefit a lot from them, of course, because they're just going to die from old age. So there should be a certain like best age to do gene therapy. We just don't know what that number is, because for example, if you look like prevention is amazing, of course, that you don't wait for your car to break down, you just do maintenance, and it's always in a good working stable condition. That's the goal. But also on people who are in great shape, who are young and who exercise and so on, it would be for sure harder to see an effect. So for us, I think like the best possible person to see an effect would be someone in like late 50s or 60s who doesn't do much about longevity. I think in this case we'll see the biggest effect. But yes. Yeah, we need to show that in trials. So it's just the idea.
Yes, thank you. And that makes sense, essentially, to attempt rejuvenation therapies in people who already need some significant rejuvenation, but who are also young enough to be able to benefit significantly from the therapies. So that's definitely a sensible approach. Now, in terms of how long these therapies last, Rudy Hoffman wonders in regard to a time frame that he saw recently, that some gene therapies may only last a few months, and if I recall correctly, 5 months was a time frame mentioned earlier on in this stream, but he notes it probably depends on the vector and the level of the affected cell. So what could you tell us about the effective time frames of any of the gene therapies that Unlimited Bio plans to administer, if that period of effect is known? And if it is known, what would be the plan for these patients, especially if they receive significant benefits? Would they be coming back for periodic administrations of the gene therapies every few months or every few years, whatever is convenient for them and whatever would maximize the effect? So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. There is this concern, of course, because they're for now quite pricey. So you don't want to spend a lot on something which just works a few months. In case of plasmids, we expect that's the case. Because plasmids is just DNA. And it's unprotected. It's and inside the cells, it also has to go through the cell membrane and travel to the nucleus to actually start working. So the first problem is you need like a very large density of those plasmids injected for some of them to actually pass the cell membrane and get to the nucleus. And there will be few of them. And they will degrade, I think what the science shows so far, that in a few weeks, so not even months. But what we rely upon there is clinical data and also how VEGF works. That if you get increased production for a couple of weeks, or even like 1 month, if you do 2 rounds of injections, for VEGF, we recommend 2 rounds of injections 2 weeks apart. That's what was found out works best in clinical trials. And when you get this protein secretion for 1 month in this site, you'll get a capillary bed formed. Then the plasmids will degrade and kind of the therapy will stop working, but the capillaries will keep functioning. So if you use those muscles afterwards, so you'll keep walking. Of course, if you'll sit on a couch, probably it won't be as good. But if you keep moving and keep using those muscles, then the capillary network will persist. And there were 5-year follow-up trials with the VEGF plasmid, and they showed that the effect grows up to 3 years. Then it kind of starts going down, but it's still, even after 5 years, it's above the baseline. So with the VEGF plasmid specifically, we need to re-inject every 3 to 5 years. But an important point is that it is for VEGF because it does form capillaries. For other proteins, which you need like all the time. For example, follistatin, you need it in your body all the time. Otherwise, if the levels go down, your muscle mass will go down to the baseline, right? So in this case, we want a way longer effect. And that's why we go for AAV therapies in this case. And AAVs, I think they last, so we say like roughly 10 years or something, like maybe longer. I'm not even sure there are studies to make like a good opinion there, but it's certainly way longer than plasmids. So we hope to see a really long-lasting effect with AAVs.
Yes, thank you for that answer, and it does make sense that the effective time frame would vary by the therapy and the delivery mechanism. For VEGF, I assume somebody would go to Próspera and stay there for the multiple administrations spaced several weeks apart, and then when the blood vessels do grow, then they won't need the treatment for a while and they could depart and live their lives. So interesting answer. And good to get some insight into the patient experience. Now, another aspect is, of course, the cost. And Rudy Hoffman does wonder about whether there's a cost estimate for the gene therapy clinical trials themselves. And then a follow-up question would be, what would be the cost for the patients? Some gene therapies are expensive. I remember Bill Andrews was working on a gene therapy for telomerase activation for Alzheimer's disease patients back in 2018, 2019. And he said, essentially, the only way to administer his gene therapy would be for a patient to pay a cost of about $1 million. So he was seeking essentially celebrities with Alzheimer's disease. But to my knowledge, he wasn't able to find any, even though they existed, but maybe their caretakers weren't as eager to have them undergo an experimental gene therapy. So that was unfortunate. But what is essentially your cost expectation? And would you have the patients fund most of the cost, or would you have your investors fund most of the cost in order to show the results that you are looking to achieve?
Yeah, so for therapies which were already proven safe and effective in case of PAD for VEGF plasmid, we do charge for participation in the trials, and the price is from 10 to 30,000 for VEGF plasmid, depending on the amount of vials and on the injection sites you want to get administered in. And for the trial I was talking about a lot, the 4 gene therapies, it will be free for the patients because we need to show that this combination is safe. So we'll know that each of them is safe separately. We'll know that they're safe in a combination within animals, and then we'll need to show that they're safe in a combination within humans. And that will be free of charge for the participants. But of course, you'll need to reimburse the travel costs, and it will require several visits to the clinic. So you'll still need to spend some money for travel and potentially for tests, but not so much. And yeah, what you mentioned, so right now we have gene therapies on the market, AAV gene therapies, which are like 2 million or 1 million and so on, so extremely expensive. And right now there are people traveling to Latin American countries, getting those gene therapies like follistatin or TRT for telomerase extension for hundreds of thousands single therapy. So people do travel there, they get those injections. They pay a lot of money, and then we don't get any knowledge what happens there. Like, what are the results? It's like just disappears somewhere in the gray. And what we want to do is actually bring that data out. So we want to see what works. And with those therapies, we expect, if they work, we should really see impressive results. For example, if you do get a high dose follistatin therapy, we expect that you'll really get an increased muscle mass. So it won't be just, I might see something on the scale, I'm not sure if it's like +1 kilo. No, it should be like a really significant effect. So it should help us also to see the efficiency in the trials with a few participants. So if we really see before and after pictures, then yeah, it would be amazing. But yeah, that's where we need people at least reimbursing the cost of travel, coming to the clinic, taking therapies, and then we'll see.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that answer. And $10,000 to $30,000 is, of course, a much more affordable price point for many more people than the hundreds of thousands or the millions of dollars that prior gene therapies have cost. So even if people do need to fund their own transportation, hopefully this will be a significant improvement to the accessibility of these treatments. And that is the pattern that we hope will manifest itself to a greater extent over time as these therapies become more developed, as companies like Unlimited Bio enter the market. Essentially, the innovation, the research will help to drive down the cost and make the therapies increasingly available. And Rudy Hoffman, along these lines, compliments you on the aspirational goal of being 1,000 times cheaper to market. So thank you to Rudy for those good words. And Rudy does wonder, though, if the optimal gene therapy would need to have hundreds of impacts on the genome, given that aging is multifactorial, could each one of these impacts possibly have its own unintended consequences? And what would you do to essentially reduce those unintended consequences and monitor for them to understand, if you're giving a combination gene therapy, which aspect of that treatment actually led to any undesirable side effects? And hopefully there won't be many side effects, but if you do see one, how would you associate it with a particular part of the combination gene therapy?
Yeah, so the good thing about gene therapy is that you get an increased secretion of protein, which is already present in your body. But if you dose it right, you just bring this secretion to like a younger state. So, for example, as I showed with clotho, it declines with age. So if we make it like this, maybe we shouldn't go like this, like to get super overexpressed in humans. It potentially can have some weird consequences. But if we go to a level which young people show, then we are safe to go there, because it's just a protein. You don't get anything else with it. Like it affects the same pathways as the original protein, and it's absolutely the same molecule. So that's the good part about gene therapy, that well, natural is probably a bad word, but it's like really natural to your body compared, say, to small molecules, which have like 100 effects all over your body, and we know a few of them, and maybe the rest of them we don't even imagine, and then they will show up unexpectedly in the trials. So in that sense, gene therapies, they are way more predictable. So the major concern with them is, as I mentioned, immune response, because if you get a lot of virus in your body, then you do get an immune response. So tackling that is the most important concern. And regarding the combination, for sure we need to test every combination before we go to humans. And we also need to have a safety data on each component of the combination. And that's why it's important to do preclinical trials also in a cost-efficient manner. And in this case, we do our trials on mice. So right now we do trial on old mice, and we do it in Russia, just because it's like 5 to 10 times cheaper there than doing it in US or Europe. I think the mice itself, they're like old mice, are extremely expensive in US and Europe. So that's how we cut down the cost. But of course, we'll check the safety before going to humans.
Yes, and I would encourage you to publish the lifespan data for those old mice, because as you know from Aubrey de Grey's comments, it is absolutely essential to show major rejuvenation in mice that are already fairly advanced in age. And the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation recently concluded its first robust mouse rejuvenation study with 1,000 mice that were in middle age, so around a year and a half old when the study started. And the oldest mouse died at a bit over 3.5 years old. So that was significant life extension, but comparable to what various other studies have shown at the outer limit. But if the study you mentioned starts with already quite old mice and is able to achieve significant life extension in them, that would be remarkable, definitely worth publishing and sharing with the world. So I would strongly recommend that this be done. Now, I also see a question here from Daniel Tweed, which is an interesting one, perhaps a bit unconventional, but maybe helpful to some potential trial volunteers. Does Próspera recognize the world citizen passport? There are some countries that do, apparently Burkina Faso, Ecuador, Mauritania, Tanzania, Togo, and Zambia. And it seems that Próspera is fairly open in terms of the people it welcomes. So you presumably didn't have any issues getting into Próspera, even though a visa from Russia may be scrutinized in other parts of the world. So what about this world citizen passport? And what else can you tell us about how easy it is for people from various countries to get into Próspera? And if there are any barriers or processes that need to be followed, I think it would be helpful for people to know about those as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I never heard about that kind of passport, and I'll try to find out if Próspera recognizes that. Well, apart from that, they seem to be really open to all the nationalities. So we might have some restrictions, maybe for North Korea. I'm not sure. No. So I don't want to say anything there that I'm not sure of. So they're quite open, but no idea if they recognize it. Sorry about that.
Well.
I also wanted to say a word about what you said regarding mice lifespan. Yeah, we did have some groups planned, small ones, unfortunately, for lifespan file. So we'll see how long they live with that combination. Unfortunately, we couldn't allocate many mice into them because, as I said, the old mice are really rare, and we got all the mice we could get. Still wasn't enough, so we have, I think, 106 mice in the trial. And also, that being said, I mean, it's very important for competition, and it makes a good headline if you make mice live 100% longer. But even if it does make mice live that long, it won't necessarily have any effect in humans. So the most important thing in mice for us is to see the safety effects on the liver, on the brain, and so on. And that's the most important finding that we can go into humans. And to actually meaningfully say that, yeah, it will have an effect on humans, we need to check that in humans. And I think that's the problem in the longevity science right now, that everybody is has a lot of things to say about mice lifespan and what works on mice, what doesn't, but it doesn't really translate to humans, because even mice and humans, they have really different aging patterns, different consequences of death. Mice get way more cancer, and they don't get Alzheimer's and so on. So yeah, we'll still check it, but it's not the most important thing for us.
Yes, thank you for that answer. And indeed, just yesterday, I had an online message exchange with someone who asked me, after I shared the final survival curves for the robust mouse rejuvenation study, which showed that the treated mice, by and large, lived significantly longer than the untreated mice, and rapamycin was the most effective of the interventions. The mouse that lived the longest was actually a mouse that received just the rapamycin. So this person asked me, well, do you personally plan to take any of the interventions that were administered? And I said, no, not at this time, because mice are not humans, and what extends lifespan in mice may not necessarily extend lifespan in humans. So rapamycin has been demonstrated by numerous studies now to significantly extend lifespan in mice by 30 to 40%, and yet that demonstration in humans has not yet been achieved. Some people do take rapamycin, but others who have taken it have discontinued it because of some of the side effects. Brian Johnson is a prominent example of such an individual. And in terms of, say, caloric restriction, which has also worked to significantly extend the lifespans of mice, the larger an animal is, the less the benefits are of the caloric restriction. So in primates, there has been shown to be a very modest benefit. In humans, it's not certain whether there's much of a benefit at all. Maybe there is a benefit of 1 to 2 years or so, but that's still an open question because there's not really a huge longitudinal lifespan study on caloric restriction in humans, but clearly it doesn't achieve the kind of rejuvenation that we would need to truly reverse biological aging. Now, on Próspera and the ease of admission, Josh Universe does note that Próspera requires an application for residency. So that is something that any tourist would need to fill out, but presumably those applications are granted fairly easily. So people aren't scrutinized heavily, but they do need to complete the paperwork and fill out all the fields correctly. So that's important to note. And Jose has a question, so please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I was in Próspera also. Actually, Próspera is within Honduras, so you need to go through immigration in Honduras. There is no separate immigration. You have to go through Honduras immigration. Honduras, though, is a fairly open country, so there shouldn't be many problems getting in. But yes, there is no separate immigration. It is the big government, Honduras government.
Yes, thank you for clarifying, Jose. And yes, it seems like the Honduras government is one of the more open governments when it comes to immigration policy. Mike Lazine wonders, so is it easier to become a citizen of Próspera than of Mexico and some EU countries? So I would say there's a difference between being able to travel there and becoming a citizen. I don't know what the policies are of becoming a citizen of Honduras, because that's what this would entail. But presumably traveling there, spending a few months there is a lot easier than a citizenship application would be. So that is
like becoming a resident is extremely easy. So you do it online, and I think it costs like $100 USD roughly for a year, something like that. And in fact, all our trials will require for the participants to get Próspera residency, because we are a company based in Próspera, and our insurance company obliges us to only work with Próspera residents. But luckily, that residency is very easy to get. And I know some people who live for a prolonged time in Próspera, and in this case, they either need to get also residency in Honduras to not get any problem on the border, or you can just forget about it and just pay a small fine when you leave, and you can even stay for a few years in Honduras and then just pay a few $100 fine, I think. They're quite small there, and they will let you out. So that's how it works for now.
Yes, thank you. And you mentioned your insurance company. Now, I am an actuary, so I have considerable knowledge about insurance, and I am curious, for a company like Unlimited Bio that works in Próspera, what kinds of insurance do you have, or are you required to have, or do you feel that you need? What do they cover, and what are the requirements?
Yeah, insurance is obligatory for all residents, I think, at Próspera, and for companies as well, especially if you operate in health or some regulated spheres, so to say. So where in all the spheres where you can potentially endanger humans, you do need to get extra coverage, and yeah, it's obligatory to operate, and we have that. Although we don't directly work with patients, but we are responsible for delivering the drug to the clinic. So the clinic, of course, is also insured. So there's this double layer of protection. It's not very hard to get. Luckily, you just need to show what you'll be willing to do, what kind of data do you have, who you will work with, then they will evaluate and your risk profile, and you just have to pay it every year, and yeah, that's it.
Yes, thank you for that answer. And I actually spoke at the last Longevity Summit Dublin in 2024 with Trey Goff from Próspera, who was there as a representative, and I had an extensive conversation with him about the insurance aspects as well. And he said at that time that essentially the entity behind Próspera was itself providing the insurance at that point in time, but they were open to other insurance companies participating in essentially offering these insurance policies as options for businesses that seek to set up on Próspera. Is it still the case that you're getting your insurance from Próspera directly, or are you getting it from another company?
Yeah, we're getting from Próspera directly, from a company like directly affiliated with Próspera. But yeah, I know they have a plan that should be competitive. So kind of on one hand, they evaluate the risks. On the other hand, they don't want to charge you that much because you can get insurance in another location to keep it the market open. But yeah, right now it's a very small place. So I think they only have a little over 1,000 residents. So it's very small, and they don't get that many businesses there. But they did get a lot of promotion recently. So they got visited by the Drapers, and they did an episode of the show for Meet the Drapers show, so the startup show. They had a large crew coming in. Both Adam and Tim Draper were there, and actually we competed, and we went on to the finals. I probably cannot disclose that. You should censor that. But the finals will be in October this year, and he asked us to not to say anyone the result, because they will be releasing the show late in the year. So sorry about that. And they also got visited by quite a popular YouTube channel recently called Yes Theory, and that was a curious episode. So if you want to see a bit into Próspera, you should watch this episode. Yeah, it's fun, and unfortunately we were not there because my teammates already left Próspera, but I'll drop the link in the chat.
Yes, we will share that link once you make it available. And in the meantime, I would encourage everyone to watch my interview with Trey Goff of Próspera. We had a conversation for about half an hour on the legal, jurisdictional, logistical, reputational aspects of Próspera, and he gave some quite thorough answers. John H. wonders, what is the entity behind Próspera? The name of that corporation is Honduras Próspera Inc., and that's the entity that offers the insurance, and then the link to the documentary that Vladimir shared is posting right now, and I will elevate it to the screen. Here it is for anybody who is interested. And now we have another question with regard to essentially the jurisdictional aspect. So I asked, well, what are some contingency plans if anything should happen to the stability of Próspera? Daniel Tweed wonders about a combination of a cruise ship and longevity laboratory. Cruise ships are in international waters. I know there are some cruise ships that do administer medical procedures. I recall being on a cruise once in the Caribbean where they had a medical clinic as well, and I don't recall what treatments were being offered there, but it seems that there's more flexibility in international waters. Have you considered something like that?
Yeah, we didn't actually consider that, but potentially it might be interesting because also Próspera does get, not Próspera, but the Roatan Island where Próspera is based, does get visited by a lot of cruise ships. So I think like 2 million tourists a year visit Roatan because of cruise ships, and maybe some of them even visit the clinic. But yeah, if somebody can provide us with a cruise ship where we can set up a lab and a clinic, then we can consider that. But so far, it seems like a nice sci-fi perspective that people get rejuvenation treatments on a secretive ship in neutral waters. Sounds fun, but probably not very realistic. It's good to be in a place where you also have emergency care and ease of transportation and so on. So we want to stay on the land now.
Yes, actually, a discussion that I recently had about Próspera pointed out that the Próspera jurisdiction itself, so Honduras Próspera Inc., does impose certain restrictions on the kinds of treatments that may be administered there, particularly from a standpoint of what would happen if the patient needs emergency hospital care, because there's not an emergency hospital on the Próspera grounds, so to speak. Somebody would need to travel farther away to get true, intense, life-saving emergency treatments. So perhaps you could talk a bit more about that and what limitations there are on the kinds of treatments that could be administered in Próspera and where someone would go if they needed emergency care.
Yeah, there is a problem in Roatan. They had a hospital there, but I think it got burned down recently. So yeah, the situation with the regular healthcare is far from good there. I think our clinic, the clinic we partner with, it has all the facilities to help patients in case of emergency. But as an additional precaution, of course, we don't go for ultra high dose AAV therapies, which can have a severe effect on the immune system. So we want to start safe with relatively low doses, which were already shown very safe in humans. And also, I think they had contract with a helicopter company to evacuate patients in case of a real emergency. So they had that planned. I think it kind of got slowed down because of the political situation. Probably you could have helicopters flying without using the Honduran customs or whatever, but maybe they'll get it later on. We'll see.
Yes, thank you for that answer. And as you can see, we have a lot of questions about Próspera as a jurisdiction. There's another one from Rudy Hoffman. He wonders, is there a strong culture in Próspera that emphasizes rigorous scientific and replicable protocols to take the place of overreaching regulation? So clearly Próspera does not want governments to regulate the treatments that are administered there, but it does have some of its own parameters in terms of what it permits, what it doesn't permit. We mentioned essentially that some gene therapies may be outside the scope of what's permitted there, or psychedelic experiments are not permitted there. So it does seem like there is an emphasis on scientific rigor and making sure that these trials are conducted safely. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think in case of Próspera, actually, we need to put a lot of emphasis on safety, because if something goes wrong within Próspera, it will not only damage the company that led to that, but also the whole, so to say, country, the whole regime may be under fire. And in case something happens, Honduran authorities might take a far more serious approach to tackling Próspera. Of course, like we cannot speak for everybody, but in our case, we do realize that significant risk, and we want to approach safely. So we want to work with therapies that were proven safe, but which are still not allowed in the US because, for example, they don't have a disease indication, or they didn't pass phase 3 trials yet. So if they were shown safe in humans, I think we are good to go there, provided that it takes place in a high quality medical facility.
Yes, and that's a very important point. A lot of people do not realize that the US FDA is much more restrictive than is needed to simply validate the safety of a treatment because of phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trial requirements, which are the most expensive, especially phase 3, to demonstrate efficacy with specific disease indications. But of course, a big obstacle to research in the US getting funded or approved is that aging is not officially recognized as either a disease or a targetable medical indication, whatever name you want to call it, for the purpose of actually developing and testing treatments for those conditions. And that's why it's essential to have other jurisdictions that do allow such trials, such as Próspera, and it's essential for those trials to get underway as quickly as possible, which is why we applaud Unlimited Bio for rolling out these combination gene therapy trials very soon. And we thank you for being here, Vladimir. We have about 2 minutes left in our virtual enlightenment salon, so I would invite you to make any concluding remarks, anything else that you want to share with our audience before we conclude.
Yeah, well, one last thing, you mentioned Aubrey de Grey and his combination trials on mice, and maybe it felt for the audience that I disregarded the mice trials, but I just wanted to say that Aubrey does support us greatly, and he thinks it's great that finally somebody is bringing those gene therapy combinations into humans. So I very much thank him for all his support and what he's done in the field. And his work on combination gene therapies on mice is incredible, and nobody did that before. So I applaud to him and thank him for the support he has given us. So, and I also thank you guys for having me this afternoon or evening. It was a really great 2 hours with you. So thank you very much for all the questions and all the sincere interest in what we're doing. So hope to see you around at events or at gene therapy trials or whatever. Stay alive and stay healthy.
And welcome to Madrid in October.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Transvision Madrid will happen in October of this year. And thank you, Vladimir, for mentioning the robust mouse rejuvenation trials, which have been conducted by the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation. Visit their website at levf.org. I am on the board of directors of LEVF, so I would highly recommend their work and supporting their work. Also visit the website of Unlimited Bio at unlimited.bio. Find out more about the team, about the clinical trials that will be underway. And indeed, as Brian Johnson would say, don't die. As we would say, live long and prosper.